I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for August 7, 2019. Would you kindly rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start with something good. We have a presentation. Chief?
It's already been taken care of.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. That's the quickest one I've ever seen. Okay. Anything else on the agenda been taken care of?
We could go home.
All right. We have subcommittee reports. Infrastructure, Vice President Culp.
Yes. Parks and Rec, well, we all know about the flooding at Parks and Rec, but the spray park is back up and running in record time, which is really good for our guys. They really worked hard for that. We still have a problem with the mini golf. One of the pumps there is still bad. They're working on that, trying to get it back in again. The pedestrian bridge at the Memorial Park is twisted and the abutment is cracked, and there's an embankment erosion, so that's something that has to be addressed. Riverfront Park's okay. Silt was cleaned up. Hopefully, we're possibly looking into FEMA help, maybe. It's hard to say. We lost a whole baseball field, and it's going to be a very expensive project to put all that back. All the other parks are fine. The Ricketts roof is on schedule, and it's pretty much, is it done yet, or just about?
It's not done yet, but everything's on schedule.
Licensing and inspections, flood stuff, survey damage, they're getting Borough cleaned up, property maintenance, calls are down, inspectors are more on the streets. Rentals are still, lots of permits for construction. Burger King has permits for some new construction and renovations at the hotel off of Shoemaker Road. And I think that's pretty much it.
You've been busy. Okay, Economic Development and Business. Ms. Lee Clark. Oh, I do have to mention, we do have one add-on right after 24. Go ahead.
Good evening, councilors, Madam Mayor. So I have some good news. I picked Pottstown banners are up on Hanover Street, so I hope you will look at the lovely banners attached to the light post. It is very festive looking. Blue Elephant, you can see sneak peeks and pictures of the construction on Facebook, on the Facebook page of Paid. It is beautiful. I get to check it almost daily, and they are on target for a late August, very early September opening. And J.J. Radigan's, the brewing equipment is being taken into that building. That will be a brew facility which is located on the other side of the Ellis Mills building within the Splitting Edge Axe Throwing, or next to the Splitting Edge Axe Throwing. I'd like to thank Khalif Jeter, who has been with Paid all summer. He is going to be a junior at Tufts University. He is an alum of the Hill and a proud Pottstown resident. Still lives here in the summers, and he has just been a great addition. So although he is leaving us tomorrow, he promises that he will be back during the holiday season, and he's really enjoyed his time with Paid. So he's been just a great asset for us. I wanted to also highlight that we had visitors last week from the international office, the liaisons that work with DCED. So we had people from the state of DCED, and we have people from Australia, China, France, Germany, India, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Poland, South Korea, and the UK and Ireland. So it was really a great visit. We took them over to see Video Ray, and before we even went, when we told them we were going to Video Ray, every one of them came up to me saying, "Oh, our country does business with Video Ray." So it was unbelievable to me, and Scott Bentley, the CEO of Video Ray, even commented, "Isn't it amazing? There are people halfway around the world that know who we are and do business with us, and there are people 2 blocks from us that don't know what we do here in Pottstown." So they really enjoyed their visit. We took them on a trolley tour. They were greatly impressed. We were one of the only stops in Montgomery County. They were hosted by Select Greater Philadelphia, so we were really lucky to have them here. And Pottstown showed very well. So that is my report, and we'll talk Fête en Blanc later on. It is, there's no seats left at the table, 500 seats. First year, 27 seats. Second year, 130 seats. This year, 500, well before September 13th. So,
Excellent.
unbelievable, unbelievable.
Did you reserve me?
There are no special favors.
I have
Very
2,
good.
Mayor. You can go with me.
Transportation, Vice President Culp.
We'll have a meeting in September.
Okay. Ad hoc zoning, Councilor Prossel.
We spoke about regulations for food trucks and alleviating the need for master plumbers for homeowners, allowing them to do the plumbing themselves potentially.
Okay. Efficient methods, Councilor Levitinsky.
Basic document language updates for ad hoc, including food truck, grading, square foot minimums, billing invoicing, and commercial documents for properties, and fire marshals are about 3 weeks out. That was last month, so. And then database coordination to redefine signage along High Street, and the percentage of occupation that the signage engulfs.
No, again, what did you say about the database?
Database coordination. The progress has been good, and it's just from the, 4 or 5 months that we've had this meeting,
Right.
it's been progressing well. Justin has had talks with the database professional, and we're making pretty good strides with that, as far as coordinating the databases with the addresses and homeowners and working between the modules. That's it.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, under the board's emergency services reports.
Yeah, I'm
Anyone?
gonna speak to that a little bit tonight. Kevin Yerger got called on to duty, so I'll cover
Sorry.
his report, which
Okay.
is in your which is on the agenda online as well. So they had 130 fire and rescue responses for a total of 650 responses for the year. 7 structural fire calls, $1,000 in damages, 51 responses for false alarms. Rescue responses, there were 68 responses. Fire police responses, there were 42 incidents. EMS, 313 responses for a total of 1,900 responses for the year. They'll be conducting a borough-wide fire training with 27 firefighters and EMS personnel in the upcoming months. And the severe weather that we experienced on July 11th impacted the borough emergency response with their fire, EMS, and police assisting or rescuing 18 people from their vehicles and then assisting in the evacuation of homes and businesses in the flooded area. The fire department responded to 31 calls for service with 18 personnel during the weather event. Fire department assisted ensuring safety and securing utilities. Others helped clean up and provide supplies to the residents that were much needed. Goodwill Rescue provided mutual aid in Douglas. They were the water response team that got up there first. So we were actually a little short-handed by the time the floodwaters got down to us. So we did have mutual aid by some of our neighboring municipalities that came in until Goodwill Rescue could get back down into our area. So they all responded very professionally. They went above and beyond in all circumstances, and in very threatening conditions for them to prevent loss of life or injury.
Very good. Human Relations, Ms. Levengood.
Good evening, councilors, council president, and Madam Mayor. Women's Equality Day is August the 26th, and this commemorates the 1920 adoption of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which prohibits the states and the federal government from denying the right to vote on the basis of sex. Aside to the right to vote, the 19th Amendment also gave women additional rights to buy and own land, serve on juries, just to name a few. It recognizes women as part of society and able to make important decisions on their own. The commission participated in National Night Out at the Washington Street site, and the commission's next meeting will be held on Tuesday, August the 13th at 6 p.m. in council meeting room, and all are welcome to attend.
Very good, thank you. Olivet Boys and Girls Club, Councilor Kirkland. Anything?
Yeah, the summer programs, as mentioned before, meetings are still ongoing. The director, Nick Philippes, is here. You have anything you want to add to that?
Good evening, Council. In the interest of time, I'll be very brief. Like Councilor Kirkland mentioned, we're running our summer program, and that's going to be concluding at the end of this week. It's been an 8-week summer camp, very low cost, especially in comparison to various other summer camps in the area. We've averaged around 55 kids per day over the course of these 8 weeks, which is higher than in recent summers past. We operate Monday through Friday, 8 through 5. We provide 2 meals a day to the kids, no additional cost above the standard camp fees. We've also awarded several scholarships to various local needy kids who attended frequently throughout the school year. A wide range of stimulating activities have been offered to the kids, ranging from recreational to educational. We take them on weekly field trips to our Blue Mountain Camp location in Hamburg, where they participate in very fun activities there. This summer, we've also provided 2 separate employment programs for teens at the Ricketts Center, namely our AmeriCorps program and the YEP Youth Employment Program through Montgomery County Res Care. And finally, we continue our adult weightlifting and community exercise programs on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Pottstown School District, Councilor Lindsay.
There was no meeting. The school board had a workshop, so I didn't attend the meeting.
Okay. Madam Mayor, you're back. Oh, yes, it is, you're back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've missed you all. I really have. I want to say thank you for everyone stepping up to help me out. As many of you know, I had back surgery back in May, and fortunately it didn't go so well, so I had to have it again. So 2 surgeries in 30 days. So I've been a little out of the loop and not been able to return some phone calls and such, but I want to thank Trinita and Dawn, especially for going to events and taking pictures. I'm sorry I wasn't able to participate in the parades and such. And I want to thank Ginny, because if it wasn't for you, there would not be many proclamations written. So thank you for getting all those done. That being said, while I was recovering, I worked on the cop card trading program. Jennifer Isett from the Pottstown Rotary Club has agreed to volunteer her photography services. Smales will be handling the printing. I'm fundraising $4,000 for the printing costs alone, which is about $100 an officer. The borough is going to create a separate fund under the general fund so we can keep track of these funds and donations. I encourage all businesses in town to sponsor a cop, and You will have your name and address and logo if you desired, printed on the back of the card. So if you are sponsoring a business, if you could email me the information you would like to see on the card with your business logo and a check for $100 made payable to the Borough of Pottstown. You can sponsor more than one officer if you like, and I'm trying to do as much as possible so we can get these ordered by the end of September. So if you could get me in your donations by then, I would greatly appreciate it. I also got to speak to 18 teens of the Youth Seed Enterprise program about canvassing, and I got the privilege of listening to their elevator speeches about food justice and the pay-as-you-will crop share program. And Hannah Davis from Trellis for Tomorrow has been teaching these youngsters how to grow and harvest crops, and they will be delivering these crops to residents in the borough who have signed up for the CSA. Last night, of course, was National Night Out. Thank you all to all the participants. It was a great night. I was able to make both locations, but I had to leave a little early. So this Thursday at 7 p.m. in Smith Plaza, the community is holding a vigil to remember the victims of gun violence in the wake of the mass shootings in Texas and Ohio. On Saturday, the 10th, which is, I guess, this Saturday, yes, the farm is from 9 to noon at Smith Plaza. The farm is also on August 24th, which is a busy day in Pottstown. So on August 24th, you can go start at 9 at the farm, and then from 10 to 3, the airport is having their open house and community event. And then from 4 to 8, there's a block party at Beach Street on the corner of, I guess, between Green and Edgewood. And that's a whole day in Pottstown of tons of events you can go to. Every Sunday in August from 1 to 4, Pottsgrove Manor is demonstrating historic trades and life skills, and that is free to all those who attend. They just ask for a small donation if possible. Sunday, August 25th from 12 to 5 is the pig roast at Manatawny Steelworks, and Saturday, September 7th from 10 to 2 is the 9th annual pet fair at Memorial Park, and I'm sure there will be lots to come. And one more thank you to Pottstown Community Action, reason number 457 of why I love living here. Just the sincere, the people in Pottstown are so caring. I had people drop off cards, Habitat signed things, signed cards, everybody in the meeting signed cards and flowers, and everyone's just been really helpful, and I feel really loved in Pottstown, so I really appreciate it, so thank you.
And now for the manager's report, Mr. Keller.
Yeah, first I'd like to commend all of the emergency responders for their response to evacuate and assist residents following the severe flash flooding that occurred along the Manatawny Creek corridor on July 11th, for which no injuries were reported in the borough, I think in part due to their swift action that was taken that day. I'd also like to thank the staff for providing assistance to the residents, as well as cleaning the roads and sidewalks the next day, as well as picking up the trash a few days later. So in total, about 40 residences and businesses were impacted with damages from the storm at an estimated total cost of $1.7 million. In Memorial Park alone, there is at least $500,000 in damages, with the majority of that related to the failed pedestrian bridge that we spoke about. Most that were impacted were able to recover fairly quickly. There's still a lot of damage done, but their structures are at least habitable. There's still a couple businesses that are still not back up yet. As we mentioned, the spray park was reopened, as well as parts of the island section, including the pavilion, are now reopened, available for rental. So extensive damage still remains to the ball field surfaces, the fencing and dugout structures. The fencing for the dog park was completely wiped out. We do not yet have an official timeline for when these portions of the park will be reopened. Portions of College Drive were also washed away. as well as a brand-new traffic light control cabinet that we lost in the flood. So we're aiming to get the curbing and the paving work completed in the next few weeks. However, it will be several months, possibly, until we're able to take delivery of the new traffic light controller and restore the intersection to full functionality. So we were closely coordinating with our insurance companies as well as the neighboring communities, the county and state legislators to petition PEMA and FEMA to release disaster funding to help cover damages on both private and public property. With the help of our emergency management coordinator, Mike Campeggio, we will be submitting the damage estimates to the county this week for consideration for emergency funding. Coincidentally enough, the day before the flood, we hosted state legislators on a tour of Pottstown's underground arch system and showed them some of the vulnerabilities in that system and how the new funding that is currently being proposed by the Wolf administration called Restore PA could help us to address some of our stormwater issues that we are having in the borough. So the timing of that meeting couldn't have been better. County planners conducted a public open house and workshop on July 24th for the Kime Street overlay project. We had about 50 residents and business owners come through the displays, and we received a lot of positive and constructive feedback. Just an update: the trash bids are now out. Included in that are bid items for regular bulk pickup, which we hope will help address some of the issues we're having with bulk and dumping in town. Also, we are escalating fines for missed pickups and improper can placements. There's a pre-bid meeting set for August 14th here at Borough Hall to take any questions from the bidders. And that concludes my report.
Very good. Civil Service Commission, will you address that?
Yeah, I can address that. So currently, the list that we have is close to being exhausted, if not exhausted already. And in order to maintain our police department staffing levels, they are requesting that council authorize a new eligibility list so that we can start the testing process and begin to line up candidates that would be able to take replacement positions, as we do have a number of officers retiring later this year.
Okay.
Can be possible there will be some of the Latino there? Spanish? Maybe a Spanish police bilingual?
Yeah, it's based on, I think, the qualifications as well as the physical qualifications that those individuals would have. And it's a very structured process for evaluating that and going down the list. But we would certainly encourage any minorities to apply.
Yeah, what we need is applicants. We need applicants to apply to take that, to start the process and take the test. So if there's any way you can get that word out, that would be great.
Okay, 10, the Colbrookdale Railroad Redevelopment Authority of Berks County, the license agreement.
Yeah, so this is a license agreement that the borough has with the Berks County Redevelopment Authority to take a 12-inch sewer main underneath of their railroad in Memorial Park. Now that the Colbrookdale station is now constructed in close proximity to that line, we wanted to revise the agreement to account for that station, and also to account for, in the future, if anything were to happen to that line, that the authority would be able to relocate it within that license agreement area and not necessarily in the same place that it is now, because the place it's located now kind of cuts across the corner of the building. So obviously if something major happened, we would not relocate it back under the building. It also takes under consideration new improvements that Colbrookdale may conceive as well in order to protect the borough's sewer line from foundations or paving or anything else that would get close to it. The line is buried 12 feet under the ground, so there isn't a whole lot of concern that it would become damaged, as well as because it's encased in concrete. So the authority approved the draft of this agreement, but it's officially up to council to make the final approval.
Okay, we'll list that from Monday. 11 is the Ricketts Center, Olivet Boys and Girls Club addendum to the agreement.
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of walk us back through the timeline that we've had a little bit regarding this. If you recall, on June 10th, Council authorized the Borough Manager to forward an amended lease terms to Olivet Boys and Girls Club pursuant to Section 11.3 of the existing lease, which basically requires the borough to send Olivet's Boys and Girls Club any lease amendments by June 30th, 2019. Following that authorization, staff did follow up with a notice that was sent to Olivet Boys and Girls Club as required, identifying the lease amendments that were desired from staff and from Borough Council. It was later, a letter was included in the councilor's packet during the July meeting outlining those terms and conditions, but I'll reiterate them briefly for you. So the term is proposed to be reduced from 5 years to 4 years. The borough's annual contribution of $40,000 a year would be maintained. The operator must open the center a minimum of 30 hours weekly and at least 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday. And then if the borough conducts capital improvements, the amount of the annual contribution may be decreased proportionately. Likewise, if Olivet's makes capital improvements, this may be credited against the borough's annual contribution. So following that, on July 13th, we were asking for council to approve that lease term as it seemed agreeable to Olivet Boys and Girls Club. The motion was tabled at that time, and we're bringing it up for council's consideration again. I think that the terms that were proposed were very closely consistent with what council had asked for at this point. And at this time, I'd like to invite Chris Winters or a representative from Olivet Boys and Girls Club to answer any questions that council may have regarding this lease amendment.
Good evening, Council. Mayor. It's been an
go ahead.
interesting 60 days for me here as the new CEO of Olivet. But let me quickly tell you a little about who I am. I was born and raised in Douglasville. I went to St. Aloysius. I went to Pius. Up until the age of 16, I had my Christmas pictures done on Penn Street. I bought my Boy Scout clothes at the New York store. I get Pottstown, and I know how important the Ricketts Center is to the history of this town. I understand the importance of the name Ricketts. Dawn Ricketts was a personal friend of mine and my wife's. I understand the history of what the Ricketts Center is and what it means to this community. And I realize that maybe, not maybe, Olivet's has not done as good of a job as they need to. But now there's a new CEO who understands the needs of the community. I understand what the fair funding formula is about and dealing with our education. And the fact that Olivet's has to be part and parcel of whatever we're doing to benefit the youth of Pottstown Borough. I also know that we at Olivet's have been consistently making sure that we're sending money to Pottstown from Berks County to make sure that we're giving the children here the opportunities that we're giving the children in Berks County. We're going to continue to do that. There are very long-term strategic plans that I've already discussed with the board about what we're going to be doing, not only here with Ricketts, but also in Berks County. By next summer, you're going to see 2 days a week of the kids going to camp. Your bus driver from down, Mrs. Beasley, and I had a very frank conversation, and she was very blunt with me. And she said, Mr. Winters, you need to make sure that these kids get more exposure up here. And she's right. We need to do that. We need to do that for all our kids. So hopefully by next summer, we're going to be looking at expanding to 2 days a week. We're also going to be, to answer some questions that were asked me by some of you, is we are going to look at collaboration, because collaboration works. Because all this is, yes, we're about the children, but we're also about the idea of the fact that we have to serve the community, and we have to serve your community. So I assure you, as the new CEO, being born and raised on the county line, spending a lot of my youth in Pottstown, and yes, including being pulled over by one of your police officers for a speeding ticket at the age of 16. You know, I understand. I understand the history and I understand the impact, and we will do better. And I assure you there will be areas that we did not do well that we will fix. And that is especially regarding the history of what the Ricketts Center means. And I will look to people like John Carson and others here, excuse me, to help me in that regard so that we pay attention to the history that Ricketts Center means. So I stand ready to ask any questions as best I can.
How long are you a CEO from the holiday?
I've been here for 60 days, effective tomorrow.
60 days?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I don't agree that they provide 4-year an agreement contract. I am the one who opposite to that.
Okay.
Because I worked with Ricketts Center for many years and I want to get report and they never was able to provide. And why only this year or last year they really improve program for the Ricketts Center, not before. That's what
And Councilwoman, I agree with you. I mean, and we're looking at all our programming across the board, and we're gonna be working very hard to improve our programming, but I think all of us can, Nick has done a very good job of making sure that everybody is quite aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it. I will also tell you that we took it seriously enough that we made sure we hired another full-time staff person. There will be some staff changes at your Ricketts Center, but it will not be Nick. Nick, and my plan is to leave Nick where he is, but I am looking at possibility of whether or not I'd like to get some more Pottstown residents involved in the Ricketts Center and what we do. We have Les Reinhardt, who's with me, who's one of our board members from down here, and he's a very valued asset to us, and has done a tremendous job of helping raise money specifically for the Ricketts Center, he and his daughter. So I agree with you. We need to do better, and we need to make sure you are well informed on a consistent monthly basis, if not more, of what we're doing. And it will be my intent to work within your community to make sure that we're working collaboratively within your community to address your concerns as well as anybody in the nonprofit sector or social services.
You have in mind who can be collaborate with you, like other organizations?
Well, obviously, we're looking at, Pottstown Health Wellness, but we're also looking, obviously, with, I would like to have a better relationship with Hobart's. I would like to have a better relationship with your school district. I think that's once I get past this point tonight or Monday night and we get past this point and I know that we're set, I will then breach those relationships and build those relationships with those entities, because quite honestly, we're not here for us, we're here for the kids. We're
How
here to-
familiar are you with the Latino community in Pottstown?
I'm sorry, say that, I'm sorry.
How familiar are you with the Latino community? in
I am
Pottstown?
not, ma'am. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. But I agree with you, and that's something that I need to do.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else?
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I like the fact that you are aware that there is a disconnect with Olivet in the community. I'm pleased to hear that, because I am really passionate about the kids, and I would like to see more of Olivet in the community, like at the block party we had yesterday and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Even at board meetings for the school board, because it's a connection and it's a circle. And if we don't get that connection together and shape it as a heart, it's broken. And the Ricketts Center. Oh, I'm sorry. And the Ricketts Center is a key part of Pottstown. So I'm glad to see that you're aware of it with your little 60 days that you've been.
Well, I may have been 60 days at Olivet, but I spent 22 years serving people of this Commonwealth in Harrisburg. And I will tell you that it doesn't matter if I'm in Harrisburg, Pottstown, Reading, Boyertown, it doesn't matter where, the same situation is everywhere. The fact is, we have to work in collaboration in order to get things done. And my staff has already been, and Nick will tell you, there's a very aggressive agenda coming out from Olivet as far as our outreach into our communities. Again, not just here in Pottstown Borough, but it's also, One of the things that we're noticing in Berks County, and again, I'm sure you're seeing as well in the surveys, is that poverty is no longer centralized. Poverty is now spread everywhere. It's one of the reasons why we have satellite locations. But the only way we can interact with the children is to make sure that they're aware of exactly what we do. I mean, there was a misconception that, you paid $15 a month to be a member of Olives. I mean, the honest God truth is you pay $15 a year. But more importantly, if your family is that stressed for funding, we routinely give scholarship and free memberships because the purpose is to give the children a place that they can call home. It's a place that they can come to and feel safe. It's a place where they know that they're going to be educated and that there are people there who really care about who they are. And every single one of my employees knows that they're expected to be out there and be aggressive as far as getting out to the community. So I assure you, Councilwoman, we will be at events here, including myself.
Okay.
I like what you're saying. I also like a lot of the points that Strive put out there too. So I'm torn a little bit. And my ultimate dream is that you all can work together somehow. That seems to be difficult to organize or to arrange. But we have to make a decision. And we have to make a decision that's going to be beneficial toward the kids. Okay? And if both sides aren't willing to work together, then we got to make that tough decision. Because whoever we hand it to, they have to be able to come in January 1st and hit the ground running on January 1st. So I'm putting a call out there for both entities to work together. One last call out there. I'm willing to meet over the weekend and talk a little bit. If not, we're just going to go ahead and make that decision and do the right thing. Like I said, it's not about people, it's not about organizations, it's about the kids.
Right.
That's the main thing. So I like what you're saying, I like what Strive says or saying, but I have a few questions in my head that needs to be answered, and I'm planning to come up with those answers over this weekend, and we'll see what happens.
Would you like me to answer it?
No, that's just a comment.
All right, I'll be more than happy to.
You can speak if you want to, on what I
And
said.
the only thing I will say is in 60 days, I have not heard from anybody from Strive, in that I've been here. And quite honestly, I can tell you my schedule is full of collaborative efforts with a lot of people. If Strive would have reached out to me in any way, shape, or form, I would have been more than happy to have a sit-down conversation with them. I have not, nor has my organization attacked Strive in any way, shape, or form. We've not publicly made any statements about them. We've not publicly came out against them. We basically explained to the council where we come from and what our background is. We are over a 100-year-old organization that has committed to the children through and through, and we wear our passion on our sleeve. With that being said, there is always room for collaboration, and there's always room to work together for the benefit of the children. And that's the reality of what we're here for. And quite honestly, Councilman, that's the reason I took this job, was because everything I do is about children, and that's the passion I wear on my sleeve. This isn't about anybody's ego, this isn't about anybody getting moving up forward or anything else. This is literally about the kids. Whether it's here in Pottstown, or it's in Wernesville, Walmsdorf, in Berks County, or it's in the city of Reading. This is all about the children.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just have a couple questions for you, Chris. So the terms that were provided to you in our letter, and then I assume were circulated to your board.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, before we do that, can I clarify in my mind what this is saying? Extended by parties for 4 additional 4-year terms. Is that, I mean, I don't want to sound stupid, but is that 16 years? Is that what you're saying? 4-year terms? Additional for 4 additional 4-year terms.
What is it? I can't get on here.
Do you mean 4 additional 1-year terms? Is that what you're trying to?
What section do you?
1.2.
Can I respond to that, so you understand?
Yes.
Right now, the current lease is set up in 4 additional 5-year terms. So it's been reduced, each term has been reduced 1 year. So it'll come up every 4 years instead of every 5 years. It doesn't.
For renewal.
Okay.
For renewal. It doesn't mean.
For
you-
renewal,
It
okay.
doesn't mean you have to renew them for 4 additional more terms, but the period of time for the tenancy has been reduced 1 year, which is, I thought, what council wanted. Understanding right now, it's 4 additional 5-year terms. Now it's 4 additional 4-year terms.
4 additional 4-year terms. Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Are we able to adjust that or modify that at all, or is that, can we discuss that, the length of the
In-
lease?
Well, I don't want to say that length is meaningless, but after the next 4-year term, we'll be having another discussion just like this, and
Understood.
council might decide that they want to go a different direction.
Understood. So, understanding the background of what Olivetta just said and the unhappiness that we've encountered here, is it possible that we can give them like a probationary time instead of 4 years, make it 2?
2.
And that maybe that they can give us the data of their progress over the next 2 years to prove to us their dedication. Is that possible?
Well, I can say certainly anything's possible, it's within council's realm, but the 4-year term was what you, as council, voted on, I believe, in the June meeting. So it was a majority
We
vote.
say they made before, but we're looking for 2.
Well, I'm not trying to debate you, that's what I understood the vote was. So
So
that's,
what would be the path that if we wanted to not go with the 4 years and then maybe renegotiate that?
well, again, I just remind you, the reason we had that discussion in June was because you were up against a time deadline that you had to give Olivet revised terms 180 days before the end of the lease. So you had voted, or at least I understood your vote was to give them that notice in June, so you complied. So technically, right now, under the lease, your ability to change that is outside that window of 180 days. You're inside that now, Don. So certainly, council can do what it wants, but I'm just trying to interpret what the current lease says. And that was why the notice went out at that time.
I was fine with 4 because obviously whoever tenant we choose needs to have some sort of security for it. 2 years would be a little short.
Okay, Mr. Kirk.
Yeah, the other thing that was approached about $40,000 annually, that's fine. The other issue that kind of jumped out with me, and I know this is kind of late in the game, but any amount, 6.9, any amount expended by the borough capital improvements may be offset and credited against the borough annual contribution. So we're saying any repairs we make can take away from the $40,000 we give them?
Correct.
I don't think that's fair. I think the borough's is the borough's responsibility to take to repair the community center if needed. I don't think it should. I don't think they should take away
I'm
from
gonna
from
let
this.
Mr. Lenhart respond to
thing.
that.
The discussion there, it's defined as capital improvement, so it does not include maintenance and repair. So the way it would work out is monies budgeted from the capital fund would be eligible to that. Monies spent from the general ledger line relative to maintenance do not get considered with respect to that. So there's a ledger line in my department which is maintenance to the Ricketts building, and that's our responsibilities as the landlord. Money spent from that line do not get considered under that section.
Like lights and
Correct.
something like.
Yeah, that we pay for those things from, we'll call it general ledger line maintenance. We pay for that from maintenance.
Like there's a whole new roof.
That's maintenance. If we undertake a capital project, it's paid from a separate line that's budgeted. So we budget those projects, and that gives notice to the tenant of those plans for the upcoming years so they can respond accordingly. So hopefully that clarifies.
Actually-
I can clarify that even more.
Sure.
We in the process of working on developing a secure door system. And we're working with Home Depot to acquire grant funding to do that. So that's going to be a capital improvement, but we're not looking for the borough to reimburse us. That's a capital improvement that's for the benefit of the safety and well-being of the children of the borough of Pottstown. So that's not something I'm looking to the council or the borough to come back and say, okay, well, Olive did this, now we got to give them extra. No, that's not it. This is about the safety and well-being of the children, and that's why we're solidifying the building of a better door system.
think
Well,
from
according
the
to this, if
borough's
it's a
standpoint,
according to this, if it's a capital improvement, then it can take away from the $40,000.
Yeah, well, let me just, that's for your protection, so let's just use the example that there's a capital expense in year 2, and it's a whole new electrical system, we'll call it 40,000. The lease would give the borough the right to credit that, but you don't have to credit that. So in other words, council sitting at the time can say, we're willing to make the capital improvement, you're not required to take that money away from them. That's going to be your decision, but it allows you the ability to do that if you want. So it's not automatic as it's written, just so.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Just so you were clear, we're trying not to tie the hands of future council, but at the same time, we want to be budget wise, because if there is an unforeseen event, everyone needs to know about it, and council may say, we understand this needs to be done, we're not going to take it off the contribution toward the operator. So
I understand what you're saying, but to me, that shows a sense of non-commitment, to me.
well, actually, I mean, really, I think the second part of that paragraph there was more impactful to the borough, because what we were in essence trying to do there, we were allowing, if the borough had a capital contribution one year that was going to be $5,000, we would allow Olivette's to offset that with an equal capital contribution of $5,000, whether it's a grant from Home Depot to put in the doors or whatever it is. So in a way, we're using that capital contribution as a way to encourage Olivette's to invest into the center, or to encourage Olivette's to work with the borough collaboratively on capital improvement projects.
What about the $40,000? For what will be that? For program or for a capital improvement?
It's generally for programming that they would use it for, I
It's
think.
to benefit the children. It goes
Yeah.
directly to the program and it benefits the children.
But they only they're going to bring some money too to do the program? Or they
No,
want to
that-
depend on the borough?
We're already investing money coming in. The $40,000 does not cover my programming costs and remotely for the programming we do at the center. We're actually sending money out of our general fund to Pottstown to help cover the programming costs. The programming costs more than $40,000, Councilman.
Yeah, and if in total, I mean, they get $90,000 from the Health and Wellness Foundation, $40,000 from the borough, so total of $130,000 that they get for programming. You've seen the other proposals. Their annual operating budget was $400,000. I'm not suggesting that Olivette's operating budget for the Ricketts Center is that high, but it's certainly higher than $130,000, I would
Yes.
imagine.
It's approaching $200,000.
Yeah, because the Oliver is not the only youth center in here. There are other organizations. They're working with under budget, and they're working really fine. That's what I think. We should think about it.
Yeah, I think the difference there is that the borough has an obligation
Yeah,
to run the
I know
Ricketts
that the
Center
board
as a
is part of the
community
Ricketts
center.
Center and the place and everything.
Is that, I went to Olivet, they had, to the Ricketts Center, they had a demonstration with the police department. The AC was, they had this big old AC machine, and they couldn't turn it on because if they turned it on, we couldn't hear, and it was very hot in there. Do you plan on fixing that?
That's on the borough, that we take
they-
responsibility for that. As you know, there's a project going on for the roof replacement and
That's
the
part of
AC
it.
unit replacements. So we had to bring in temporary air conditioning in order to get the center acclimated enough. It still wasn't perfect, but at least got it acclimated enough that the kids could be in there. And the roof and HVAC project hopefully will be finished in the next couple months. As we said, it's on schedule. So that was just there temporarily.
Okay.
Councilman, we also brought in window units, right? We also brought in window units to supplement, in order to make sure that the children have spaces where that they could keep cool in the latest heat waves. And then they also were at camp, and we also had them at the pool.
My general concern was, I just don't want to create a situation where, the borough is looking to, to lessen their obligation to the borough by, okay, we're fixing this, so we're going to take it away from, I just want to make sure that even if it's only optics, I just want to make sure that that's not the case.
It's not the goal, that's for sure. I mean, in the 5 years, we have never, I don't think, have we ever enacted that to any great extent?
That was the start of the Ricketts roof.
Right. So we came up with $318,000 for the Ricketts roof and HVAC replacement, and we did discuss deducting $10,000 from the capital contribution. So you can kind of see the scale that's at, if we would have to, enact something at that magnitude.
Yeah, I don't like it. It doesn't.
I don't like the wording.
I just don't like the fact that can be done.
So I guess my question would be is where, if we have a capital improvement that needs to happen, that needs to be done, where do we get the money if it's not budgeted? I mean, I think that was a way to kind of save that line item for unforeseen capital improvements.
So that $10,000 was a make it or break amount? If you didn't have the $10,000, it couldn't have been done? That $10,000 that you took out?
Yeah, it was, quite frankly.
It was a make or break amount.
Quite frankly, it was. I mean,
it wouldn't have happened.
We were over budget on that project by $100,000.
So that $10,000 made a difference?
It did.
That's hard to believe. Okay. All right.
We did include in the wording, and that was part of the negotiation what we did in good faith with the borough, is that we agreed that we were going to work in collaboration with the borough and other organizations to make sure that we're trying to work to bring more funding in to make sure that we're providing these children with the best experience they can have. And I'm committed to that.
That's fine.
Any other comments? Okay.
So I guess I just want to follow up on my question. So the terms that we had presented, you had taken them to your board, and were they generally receptive to those terms?
Receptive. Yeah, the wording that we changed into what 6.9, I think it was one of the sticking points originally, but when we changed the wording, we were okay with the wording.
So 6.9 is the section that Councilor Kirkland is referring to.
Yes.
Right.
And you're comfortable with that?
That's why I said, if you brought up that part where we said about collaboration and whatnot, we changed the wording where it says may, which basically gives some cooperation between us and the borough, and it's a working relationship between the two entities. I mean, we need to do that not only to protect the children, but we also need to do that because we realize you have a budget you have to make for the borough.
Right.
We have a budget we have to follow in order to provide services. The difference between us and others is that we have the ability to run our budget and know where our budget is, and we can absorb some of this. But in the end, it's all about the children. And in the end I appreciate your concern, and I assure you it was a concern we have, but we are comfortable with the wording.
Okay. I just like the situation where everybody's putting their hand in the pile together and showing commitment to the whole thing. So yeah, that word may kind of, I see your point.
So they were agreeable to the terms.
We have a board meeting for formal action on Tuesday.
On Tuesday.
I can't take formal action until a board action.
So okay.
yes.
Okay, so we'll know formally on Tuesday.
Right, on Monday, if you're gonna go to the vote, and, you know, we're gonna be prepared. And my recommendation in my report is to accept the condition, accept exactly as we negotiated, because it was a good faith negotiation between us and the borough.
So you think it'll
I do.
pass? If there are changes at this point, what do you think the board's position is gonna be?
I don't think there's gonna be changes, honestly, sir. I really
I mean,
don't.
if there are changes from our end.
We're up against the wall here, and let me say it to you this way. I mean, right now, Nick has planned the last 6 weeks, he's been planning and putting in place, ready to go. So on August 26th, we're opening, with the understanding we're there. And we're gonna be there to greet those children and be part of the process, you know, for the school year. Because honestly, that's, when we discussed it, whether, no matter what the council did, I need to make sure that we were prepared to take care of these children, and that's what we're doing. So we're up against the wall here because of the fact that you're, you know, I'm kind of like, okay, how do I go out and develop collaborative relationships with your school district? How do I go to the Y? How do I go to the YWCA? How do I go to organizations in your community and ask for support if I can't have that final document that says, yeah, we're good, we're gonna move forward for the kids? I told the councilman, and I'll tell everybody here, I'm willing to work with collaborative relationships. I do it now in our facilities in Reading. There's no reason that we can't work together. We just have to realize that when it comes to these children, the number one thing for me is safety and security. So, you know, people who come in my facility are gonna have to understand that background checks have to happen. We have to have liability insurance. We have to have certain things to protect these children, because that's what it's about. As long as we can agree to those things and we can work it out, we'll be fine. We can work together. I'll work with anybody.
Thank you.
Okay, we will list this for action Monday evening.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
12 is an amendment for vacant property registration ordinance. Objection.
I'll take it. I think last month we talked about this issue conceptually. We discussed the fact that several years ago, the borough had enacted an ordinance to require the registration of vacant property. In working with the entity that administers the program at no cost to the borough, they had made some suggestions as to amending the ordinance. What you have is now a working draft of what we talked about last month. Essentially, what this ordinance does is creates additional terminology to make the administration and enforcement somewhat easier. There now is a dichotomy or a bifurcation of types of properties. There is the vacant property, or then there's the property that's in foreclosure or foreclosure action. Based upon the status of the property, the registration fee would be increased if the property was in foreclosure. The frequency of the registration would be more frequent for a foreclosed property. So these ordinances, or ordinance changes, take into account the recommendations that have been made. I think there's a few more fine-tuned items that have to come into this, but if you're comfortable with the direction we're going, the next step would be to authorize the advertisement of this ordinance amendment so we can then go forward with the additional language that would allow better administration of the vacant property registration itself. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think you can see in the document, if you look at Section 2, there is a lot more defined terms that can be used to administer the whole process. And then I guess Section 3 of the ordinance then goes on to make the changes as far as the fee for a property that might be in default of foreclosure versus the property that's simply vacant. And again, there's differences on how that'll work. So that's where we are.
So in other words, bank-owned properties would be charged double the fee than
Yes,
one that was.
and would be required to register more frequently than just one that was vacant and didn't have a mortgage or was just vacant.
So again, the whole intent of this ordinance is to try to make it more compelling for owners of vacant or abandoned properties to do something constructive with them, or they're going to keep paying the penalty.
I guess a big problem with this is locating those owners. in a lot of situations, right? And
Yes.
especially if it's it's been abandoned for a long time.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
mean, even fine those owners to issue the fine.
You're
is a big
you're
issue.
correct, and that's what our consultant really specializes in, is trying to make sure they can find the folks to assess the penalty. We also talked last month, if you recall, about collection efforts and the discussion about getting entities to do more vigorous collection. That's the next step. That's not in front of you this time, but that'll probably be on your agenda next month or the following, because now once there's certain folks that pay routinely, and so they're not a problem, but there's other folks that either you can't locate or refuse to pay. So then there's the question of enforcement and how you make them do that. So the next step is to make sure that we have someone that's able to enforce the collection efforts.
Correct, because I know there's a big eyesore, a house that I put on the blight list 4 years ago on Warren and Lincoln Avenue. It's a big house there, eyesore. Big hole inside the building, birds flying in and out, and all kinds of stuff going on. It's just frustrating.
It is frustrating. It's frustrating for the staff who work so hard to try to get these properties cleared up. I mean, there's a lot of hurdles that we come up against legally, locating the property owners, that kind of thing. But we're going to continue to chip away at it, and we're going to use every tool in the toolbox to start to combat these vacant properties, because they're a safety risk for our community. It's a drag on our resources,
Right.
And it's bringing our property values artificially low.
Right, because I was at a constituent's house right across the street from there on another issue. And we started talking about that house right across the street. And the structure of the house is tearing away from the chimney. And so it's a chimney, it's a brick chimney. And, when that support falls away, that brick chimney is going to, it's a dangerous situation that needs to be taken care of before something really happens, somebody walking down the sidewalk.
Judy Member from Genesis Housing said that there might be some grants available for municipalities like us to demolish buildings like that.
I hope so.
And particularly that one on Warren Street is my first candidate, I think.
Yeah, and quite frankly, once it gets to the point where it's an imminent danger to someone or another property, we would be able to, in most cases, get a court order to go in there and demolish it, and we do have some funds set aside to do that, and we're in that process with several properties right now. I know that L&I has their eye on the one at Lincoln and Warren. I'll ask them to go out and take another look at it, just to make sure, because things can change over time. Recently on Apple Street, we had 2 abandoned properties where we were actually able to get the property owner to demolish the 2 abandoned properties on each end. So, we're working it from every different angle that we can.
Thanks.
Okay, then. We'll list this for approval on Monday. Thirteen is a resolution, the fee schedule amendment for outdoor dining areas.
So if you recall, several months ago, we did pass new regulations permitting outdoor dining areas on sidewalks in the borough. There was one piece of that still needed to be completed, and that was to set a permit fee. So we went with the lowest possible option there and decided to recommend a fee of $25. And this would be a one-time fee, so it's not an annual fee. It's a one-time fee that runs with the business or the property owner. If the property owner or the business would change, they would have to apply for a new one-time license fee.
Now, this mainly applies to businesses in the downtown area, right? Or no?
Anywhere.
No, it would be throughout the borough.
Okay, good, because I was talking to some business owners up my way, up there, Little Italy's. And he, the owner, I was talking to him out front, and he said, I love the idea of the outdoor seating, and I would love to do that here.
Right.
But he was thinking it was only for downtown.
No.
So I told him I'd look into that.
Yeah, no, it covers all of town.
All town.
Good, absolutely. Good. I'll let him know that.
Okay. We'll list that on Monday. 14 is the mid-year budget adjustments. Is that you or Ms. Lee?
I'm going to call Janice Lee, our finance director, to go over the mid-year adjustments.
Okay, so while I hand these out, I'll just remind the mid-year budget adjustments can't be done across funds. So only in the general fund can you move some items around. And then interdepartmental. So what I did, I believe in, Ginny, help me out, on the website page.
So with the agenda.
With the agenda, the adjustments were made. The report is attached. Just the right number. So you might not be able to look at it and review it now, but if you go back, you'll be able to take that back with you and look at the report you have on the web. And I've provided the page numbers just to show you an example of some of the highlighted large ones in the general fund that we transferred. There was a typo on the longevity residency expense for the police. It was under civilian instead of police, so it got switched from the wrong one to the correct one. In the police budget, there was an amount in the major capital that needed to be in the minor capital. Under the developer, the borough share of some of the grants, we reallocated $25,000 where it might be needed for the land bank. That came from an area where we thought we were going to have to put money in for a match that we didn't need. The same thing for the $6,000 was for a match that we didn't need. We reallocated that somewhere else. And then a $10,000, a match we didn't need, and we reallocated that towards part wages. So then just because we're at the end of July, to give you an update where we are on all the funds, I hadn't done this before, but I thought it would be helpful. I listed the funds and the percentage of revenues we've collected, the expenses we've expended. This is as of the end of July. And then you can see where the source of most of the revenue comes from. So you can see that budget-wise, we're doing very well across all the funds. So I imagine that you'll need time to digest this.
Yes.
And come back with questions. You can always email the manager and they'll.
Okay. I have a quick question, though,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't mind.
Yep.
Just to get my head wrapped around it a little bit, and just so I understand it. Like say, for instance, the streetlights line, for instance. You're at 90%, 91% revenues taken in.
Right.
And you're at 52% expenses.
So let me explain on, if you look at the ones with real estate taxes, you'll see that most of those revenues are higher than the other ones, and that's because we have collected most of our real estate tax. The streetlights doesn't have very little other income besides the real estate tax, so that's why they're at 91.
Okay.
Where the general fund, we do have other kinds of revenue besides just the tax.
Okay.
You'll see that's consistent down through, and that's why I marked the 6 of them that have real estate tax. We've taken in most of the tax.
Okay.
But that was a good question. In the airport, some of the hangar rentals, they pay for the whole year, or they pay 6 months ahead, so that's why that one's a little bit higher. And the fire fund, we get some of our revenues earlier in the year, and that's also taxes.
So, if the expense is higher than the revenues, percentage-wise, does that tell us anything in particular?
You can't always go by percents, because sometimes the revenue doesn't come in until later. But I believe the only scenario like that is the airport fund.
Okay.
Oh, and sewer lines.
Yeah, and that's probably due to two big capital projects that are going on at both those facilities.
Right, and the sewer lines is funded by the '08 funds, so we don't always do the whole transfer right away. So half of the transfer was done for the first half of the year.
Right.
What about debt service and grants?
Well, the debt service, most of that's already paid. There's one very small payment left in December.
The expenses are
And, right, that's what I'm saying. Most of the debt service is already paid for the year. The grant
Yeah,
funds is
so what we did is we
reimbursable.
prioritized our payment of debt service to reduce the interest that we would have to pay in the long run, so we prioritize that debt service payment earlier in the year. And we only have, 9% left on that we need to pay throughout the end of the year. So it's
The
not that we're-
principal's paid in June.
Yeah, so that one, I mean, we're not, gonna go over budget on that. It's more of a timing issue, and I think you have to be careful reading into these
Right.
too
It's
much.
good to look
Right.
at, but you can't read into it too much.
Right.
The
'Cause-
grant fund is reimbursements, so you put the expense out first and then you wait for the reimbursement.
Right, because that was my general question somewhat, by looking at these percentages on these columns, is there any relationship to these percentages where you can forecast and say, oh, that's a red, that's something we need to look at, because there's chances for that line to go over budget? Is there, if the numbers are far apart, or if they're close together, is that
No,
anything? Okay,
it's just to give you a general idea.
okay.
I think this gives you, I
Right.
mean, overall, if you look at the overall picture, this gives you a picture of good health.
Right, I got it.
For the borough right now financially, because
Right.
as you can see, there's only a couple of the expense lines that are higher than the revenue lines at this
Right.
point. And where I would be concerned is if we weren't able to explain the reason for that, some
Right.
sort of extraneous factor that is occurring, then there would be concern. But I think, the timing issues, the capital projects with the sewer and the airport account for that.
Also, the expenses, most of them are paid ahead. So most of your health care is paid ahead. So by the end of July, you're usually around 63 or 65%. So you can see there's a lot of 50s in here.
Mhm.
So we're on target.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. And we have to approve that Monday. Okay, so we'll list that for Monday for approval. 15 is miscellaneous ordinance amendments from the ad hoc committee.
Yeah, so we have several concepts for your consideration tonight that we'd like you to authorize our solicitor to work on to develop a little bit further with staff and with the ad hoc committee. So the first one, and again, I think the big picture is here is that we're trying to look at regulations that are, overly burdensome or those that just don't make sense, to try to make it a little easier and business friendly for people conducting projects and improvements in the borough. So the first one would be the elimination of requirements for off-street parking just in the downtown area. And I think that it's not meant to be a wholesale elimination, but I think an elimination certainly for commercial uses would be at the top of my list. Anyway, I think with residential, we would have to look at that a little more carefully and maybe have a trigger mechanism in there for residential buildings over a certain number of units, then the parking requirements would then kick in. But again, this is all kind of just conceptual at this point, and we'd like to authorize the solicitor to work on this further. The second one that we're looking at is exempting owner-occupied residential properties from requiring a master plumber. So essentially, we would be allowing homeowners to do plumbing work on their property. They would still need a permit, but they don't have to hire someone to do that work, as long as they feel comfortable doing it themselves, it will still be inspected. So they need to know all the plumbing codes and the typical means and methods for construction. This would only apply to single-family homes and duplex homes. So a two-unit that's on a single property. So the concern is that we didn't want to go any further with that, because if you're in an attached unit and it's not in single ownership, a plumbing leak could go into a party wall and go into the other unit. Then you are, putting someone else in danger. If you mess up your own plumbing, then that's on you, and it's going to be your problem to figure out. So that was one that we thought would help encourage more, entrepreneurs to invest and rehabilitate some of our homes in the borough. The third one is revisions to our triggers for grading and stormwater permits. So right now, any grading over 100 square feet requires a grading permit from the borough, and we just feel that that's too low at this point in time. You're talking about a very, very small area that could
10 by 10.
10 by 10.
That's a small bedroom.
Right, could trigger that
Yeah.
that requirement. It didn't really make sense, and quite frankly, we weren't really enforcing it that hard anyway. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to kind of fix that at this point. Further, the committee recommends, we recommend increasing that 100 square feet to 500 square feet. So it's getting you a little more than a 20 by 20 area, which I think would capture like a patio, which is a very common application that we would see in a backyard or even a small swimming pool. And then there's a second requirement that requires a stormwater management plan to be prepared. Currently, we're at an acre for the stormwater management plan. We think that should be reduced somewhere in the area of to 1,600 square feet, which is about a 40 by 40 area that you would be able to cover before you would need a stormwater management plan. I think the second part of that, we're probably going to hold off on a little bit, because we also want to look at impervious coverage requirements in conjunction with the requirement for a stormwater management plan.
Is that like a half an acre? What you propose?
No, 1,600 square feet. So it's like 40 feet by 40 feet.
40 feet by 40 feet, okay.
Yeah. But we want to look at the impervious cover because we realize that there's different sizes of properties in the borough, and we think that there needs to be a sliding scale on impervious coverage, whether and it'll look at whether you have a small property or a larger property. So
Is that still a situation where it's like a case-by-case basis, and they can apply for a variance if possible? Is that, because if it's 40 by 40 and they're not doing much, it's not much of a renovation, it's not much of a, and it happens to be over 40 by 40.
Yeah, well, they would either need to provide a stormwater management plan, and that could be something as easy as showing the grading and a rain garden, making sure that they're not. It could include pre and post development calculations, making sure that they are not adding any additional water flow onto adjacent properties other than what currently exists, similar to what we heard in the conditional use.
Is there anything that
earlier.
it does have to be by a registered engineer or anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
I don't know.
it would. But again, I think we need to look at that
Yeah.
in concert with impervious. So we may ask to look at, for Chuck's office to look at
Look at more.
impervious as well in conjunction with
Because
this on
yeah.
Monday night. The last one is a revision to swimming pool regulations in the zoning ordinance. So storable swimming pools have become very affordable and very popular in the last couple years. And the way our ordinance looks at storable swimming pools or swimming pools that you put away during the winter season is like any other pool, an above-ground or in-ground pool. We think that this is a little onerous, and really what we're running into is there's, I think, a 7-foot setback requirement for all pools from property lines in the borough. What we would propose is reducing that setback requirement to 4 feet just for storable pools. We would keep the 7 feet for above ground and the more permanent pool structures. They would have to be taken down after each season in order to be classified as storable. And then we would also have to create definitions for in-ground pools, above-ground pools, and storable pools as a part of that revision.
Should they have covers over their pools? I don't know, because I know one in my neighborhood has a above-ground pool, like you get from Walmart. It's a big one with a ladder that you can go up, but I'm just worried that a child can climb that.
Yeah, as long as it's over a certain height.
How tall it is.
But I'll let our licensing and inspections director speak to that if you want to add.
Fence.
Whether it's above ground, in ground, or storable pool, if it's over 24 inches in height, and capable of
more than 24 inches of water. Still has to comply with all the other requirements for the electrical, the fencing, guards. So the person does need to get the permit. We do need to look at all those other issues for them at the same time. But it requires fencing, it requires special latching requirements on the gate. If it's 4 foot in height on the side of the pool, it could have a removable ladder, but there are requirements they still have to meet.
What about fire pits? Is that on there?
No, it's not.
Throw that in there, because these fire pits.
Okay, any issues, questions, discussions?
I think we just wanted to get a consensus from you guys moving forward before we started writing some of these up. So
Okay,
that's really where we're going.
Going through the list, the off-street parking, owner, occupied plumbing, grading, are these all zoning issues?
No.
Just need to be the committee that deals with them.
Do we need a different committee to address those things?
No, I think that the same committee can address these items, but perhaps you want to change the name of the committee.
Well,
it started out as looking at zoning, and
Right.
I think it's morphed into really looking at all borough regulations.
Or make it a formal committee. It's an ad hoc committee that's been going on for about 3.5 years or so. So it's up to you guys.
Yeah.
so the action you're requesting Monday evening is?
To authorize the solicitor to work with staff and the ad hoc zoning to prepare these 4 ordinance amendments.
Okay, we'll list it for Monday. The DBE program.
At this point, I'll call up Courtney Heyer, Grants Administrator and Part Administrator, to talk about items 16 and 17.
Good evening. You all received the DBE policy. It was attached to the agenda.
Right.
This is part of the Department of Transportation's requirements under 49 CFR Part 26. What it does is establish a goal for the borough and part to utilize disadvantaged businesses, which would be minority or women-owned businesses, in procurements, and to ensure that we are not discriminating against those entities. This policy also designates myself as the DBE liaison officer. In that capacity, I will ensure that the program is running as is governed by the DOT. So I would ask that this be approved and adopted on Monday evening.
Okay.
And moving on to the next item is the Transit Development Plan. A few months ago, a representative from Michael Baker was here and presented the draft plan. You have a copy of the plan that we are asking to be adopted. The new routes are listed for you on pages 47 through 51. They will be much more user-friendly. The day and evening lines will now be the same, which will be much less confusing for transit passengers. And we will also be serving Boyertown and Gilbertsville, which will add service, obviously, to additional areas that we're not serving now. However, we will maintain the same service hours, so it should not increase expenses in any way, because our contract is paid per revenue hour. So once this is approved and adopted, I will be reaching out to Boyertown Borough and Gilbertsville, the townships that are there, to have approval, to seek approval for us to be able to serve their areas, and we'll be going into a few shopping centers that we'll need to seek approval on.
Okay.
And this will be implemented, the goal is for early November. We plan to launch the new routes along with our new buses, which we should be receiving in early October.
Good.
Any questions?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we'll list those for Monday. 18 is the Reading Gravity Race. They're back.
Yep, they're back. So looking for approval of two events and a closure of Wilson Street on August 18th and September 22nd.
Very good. All right, list that for approval. 19 is the Kingdom Life Church at Franklin and Walnut Street. They want to close.
Yep, they're looking for another street closure for a church event on August 25th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. At Franklin and Walnut Street.
Very good. We'll list that one.
No complaints so far.
Pardon?
No complaints so far.
No. 20 is the Victory Christian Life Center community event on September 7.
Requesting closure of Washington Street between King Street and Buttonwood Alley on 9/7/19 for a free community event, food, games, giveaways, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
That will be Sunday, right?
Yep, is that the one that the mayor was possibly referring to?
Sunday.
No. Okay, list that one. 21, the Phaeton Blanc on High Street for September 13. I don't know, you think we could do that?
We should. Don't want to make Peggy mad, do we?
Sure. Anything?
I don't think we can turn 500 people down at this
No, we
point.
can't. Not at all. All right, we'll list that for Monday evening. And how many spaces do you want next year? Bigger, okay. Also, 22 is the Phaeton Blanc event, request for alcohol in Smith Family Plaza on September 13th. No
Yep.
discussion, so we'll list that for approval Monday evening. 23 is the Potts Grove Cross Country Race, College Drive and Keystone Boulevard.
Yeah, so this is going to be College Drive by Riverfront Park, west to Keystone Boulevard to the end, and return on the Schuylkill River Trail to College Drive into Riverfront Park. This is on Thanksgiving Day,
Yeah, they're
Thursday,
gonna-
November 28th.
They're going to run up on the road and back on the trail. Yeah, okay. No questions, we'll list that for approval. 24 board vacancies, the construction cord,
Actually, we have the Tri-County.
getting there,
Oh, sorry.
okay. Board vacancies, the Construction Code Board of Appeals, 1 3-year appointment, and Joseph Chrisman. And on the EDAC, we have one opening, a 3-year term, Lisa Miller. Okay? List those for Monday. C is EAC is a 3-year reappointment of Lynn Dweez. Got that? And our add-on, the Active Adult Center, we'd like to have
Yes,
Garden.
yes, the Tri-County Active Adult Center wants to hold a beer garden for their Cheese-Toberfest grilled cheese competition on October 5th, 2019, in the paver area of Memorial Park from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Feature live music, food, and vendors.
It's very delicious. I encourage everyone to attend.
All right, so we'll list that for Monday. It's time for comments from citizens present. Those who have endured this for how many hours?
Did you, ma'am?
Did you sign?
in?
Okay,
Okay.
we'll call you.
everybody watched me sign it.
Okay.
That's why I said that, because everyone watched me sign it. But anyway.
All right.
So,
Each one, as you're called, each one of you have 3 minutes to address council.
I'm sorry, but
Wait.
you're not first on the list, and I need to go in order here to be fair to everyone. So, Robert Biggins, I assume he's left.
Okay.
Okay. And then Michelle, that's you, you're next. So go ahead. So you've, just a reminder, you have three minutes.
Go ahead. No, the first one left, so it's your turn.
Okay. The people in Pottstown are homeless. They provide shelter for single men. They don't provide any shelter for single women. I myself don't have my son with me right now, but he will be coming back home to me here in Pottstown. And I just want to know, why do you only provide shelter in the winter and nothing in the summer? Because people are homeless in the summer too. And why do you only provide shelter for people that have children with them at that time? Don't you think that's being discriminatory? Like, is it okay for me to sleep on the streets and then be threatened to be arrested because I'm sleeping on the streets? Think about it. What am I supposed to do? What is the town going to do? You don't want people sleeping in the bus stops or at the bus station or using the bathrooms or anything because they're homeless, but yet you don't provide a shelter for them not to be homeless. Nobody has an answer?
We won't be responding, but we will listen to you.
I thought maybe someone had a suggestion on how to fix that. Because I made a whole bunch of suggestions on how to fix this town. And I don't see a check in my pocket for all the suggestions that I made. I see a lot of improvements that I made, but I don't see no payment for it.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I'm gonna go sleep in the tent tonight.
All right. Next is Mike Lindever.
Lindever. I'm not quite sure if this is the right meeting or not for this, but I, a recent,
Could you come up and use the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm a recent
victim, I guess you would want to say, of the July 11th storm. The storm drain, those arches in my alley behind me erupted. And I'm trying to get information on when and how, if that's possible, when it's going to be fixed. I've made some calls to Public Works.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to Mr. Yerger once, but I haven't gotten any information since. So I don't know if this is the right meeting to discuss this
I
thing or
can
not.
talk to you about that after the meeting. I can speak to you about that after the meeting.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any others?
That's it.
Okay. We're going to the councilor's general discussion. We'll have an executive tonight at this hour on Monday.
If everyone's okay with Monday.
Okay. All right. So, going through the councilors. Councilor Proskal.
Well, just thanks everybody that helped and continues to help with the flood. And then actually a lot of my neighbors on Chestnut Street would like to thank our police department with a real issue that they've had for quite some time, but I think it's under control now.
Good. Vice President Culp.
I was at the car show Saturday and also at the alley, and went to the mini golf and the carousel, and we had a really enjoyable evening, and it's good to see what all's going on in Pottstown. I also went to the new Metro Diner, Route 100 Metro Diner, and it's really, really, really nice inside. And I was very impressed with how it looks. I hope the food is just as good. I didn't get a chance to try it yet.
Okay. Councilor Lebedinsky.
I attended the First Friday in Pottstown over at the Carousel over the last couple of months, and I've really seen a lot of improvement and attendance increases, which is really exciting. Again, we need to chain link or piggyback that kind of function to something on many things on High Street to bring the people in. And it looks like, after talking to Peggy, we have a lot of things that are on the horizon that really are impressive. So, good news and good luck.
Good. Councilor Lindsay.
It's going to be short. Car show, the alley. I love the alley. 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
I love the alley. Again, I chime in on Ryan. I appreciate all the assistance that the police and the fire department did for when we had the floods. And the NAACP provided some Nike, they took the kids to Nike outlet to get sneakers, and they was playing out there on the Ricketts basketball court. I went to the farmer's market. That was nice. And, and the Go Forth committee went out to the park down here and cleaned up some of the, where they did some, with the mud. So they shoveled it, try to help out Parks and Rec. And I also attended First Friday, which, and like Don said, is growing every First Friday. So that's it.
Good.
Were you that rowdy group, part of that rowdy group that was there?
It was. That was.
That was you?
No, it was.
Councilor Paez.
I only remind everybody of the council to go to the Latin Festival next month. Food, good food, mariachi, music, and dance.
And the date?
Yes.
September 21st, from 12 to 5.
Very good.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. Mayor?
Nothing other than I just want everyone to know I'm not trying to be rude, but if you see me getting up or if you see me walking around an event and having to leave suddenly or not being able to clean up Edgewood Cemetery just due to my limitations, I can't do a lot of stuff yet, so I'm just having to stand a lot, so I apologize.
Okay. Let me see. Highlight for me was Saturday night with the car show, and being the motorhead that I was. And I was really impressed to see 3 tractors. Not the tractor trailer, but there were 3 tractors out there. An International Harvester, a Peterbilt, and what's the third one? Kenworth, I think. Nice additions to our car show. I don't know what they're going to bring in September, but I'm looking forward to it. We will not be having the executive session tonight. We put enough hours in. Probably do that Monday. Meeting adjourned.